A former LSU Tiger is joining Lane Kiffin's staff while another is leaving the staff. We have the details locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts. Of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive and energy into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Lane Kiffin is having one former LSU Tiger, join his staff while another leaves. We're able to learn and report over at Louisiana Sports.net that former LSU linebacker Greg Penn is joining LSU staff as a defensive analyst, while Jermauria Rasco, former LSU defensive lineman who's been on staff since March of 2024, is leaving to accept the assistant defensive line coaching job at Mississippi State. So let me dive into each of these just a little bit here, and we'll start with Penn coming in. I do think, listen, I'm not going to overstate this. Penn is a year removed from his playing career, and it was a very good playing career at LSU. Greg Penn wasn't necessarily the most dynamic. He's a 6'2", 234-pound linebacker who played 4 seasons at LSU. And each of his last 3 seasons in Baton Rouge, he started each of those last 3 seasons and finished second on the team in each of 2022, 23, and 24. So just a little context here. Greg Penn played over 4 seasons in 50 games with 40 starts. So he was a 3-year starter. His tackle total as a sophomore, 78, 89, 86, his last 3 years. Each of those totals was second on the team in those respective years. And the other thing that's really important to remember is Greg Penn was awarded the number 18 jersey. So this is a guy who his last season in Baton Rouge was 2024. So it's important to note that as a former linebacker now joining staff under Blake Baker, who is the defensive coordinator, of course, Baker's first year back at LSU. Remember, Baker was the linebackers coach in 21. He went to Missouri in 22-23, returned to Baton Rouge in 2024 as defensive coordinator and coaching linebackers. So Penn's senior season, he was coached by Blake Baker. So obviously you have familiarity there, and you have Blake Baker welcoming Greg Penn back to campus, back to this coaching staff. And this is a guy who was a great leader and wore the number 18 jersey, so had the respect of his teammates. So think back to 2024, even some of these guys on this roster were already here, even in that position group. Wood Weeks, Devon Keys, Tylen Singleton, the more veteran guys in that position group were in Baton Rouge when Penn was on the roster wearing the 18 jersey. So I like a lot of those synergies. I don't know that we're going to sit here and try to argue that adding Greg Penn as a defensive analyst is some game-changing decision, but I do like cultivating younger coaches on staff, and we've seen that a lot with former LSU guys coming back, working as GAs, analysts, whatever it may be, and working their way up. Maybe no better example than a guy like Dennis Meatball Johnson, who now is the defensive line coach with the Baltimore Ravens. So you've seen this a lot. You never know what may come of it, but Penn was a very good college player, probably a step slow. He went undrafted in the 2025 draft. There was an initial report that he was going to sign with the Minnesota Vikings as an undrafted free agent, but I went and looked and cross-checked on the Minnesota Vikings website from their UDFA class in the 2025 draft, and Greg Penn was not a part of it. So it sounds like he did, and I couldn't find anything online to where he spent training camp with an NFL roster. Maybe he did, and if I haven't found that, my apologies. If you know something I don't, please let me know. I'll continue to dig to see if I can find that. I just couldn't find it. So sounds like Penn was out of football, certainly not in the NFL this year in 2020, in the 2025 season, and now has decided to hang it up as a player. and give it a go as a coach. So Greg Penn joins the LSU staff. Meanwhile, Jermauria Rasco leaves. Now, Rasco had a very good, very underrated career at LSU. He played in 48 games with 26 starts during his time in Baton Rouge. And after his final season with Tigers, he was he played with the Green Bay Packers as a UDFA. He spent one season with the Packers, then a few stints with Tampa Bay and with Pittsburgh, and then retired in 2017 and began his coaching career at Texas A&M with the Aggies. And then after one season in Texas A&M, he went to Arizona, where he was there for 3 years, 18, 19, and 20, and then subsequently ended up joining LSU in March of 2024. Forgive me. He also, and then after Arizona, he then went to UL Lafayette. So A&M, Arizona, UL Lafayette as player development coordinator, and then joined LSU in spring of 2024 as a defensive analyst. It's also worth noting that the most recent Texas Bowl game, remember Kyle Williams had left the LSU staff, was not going to return. So Rasco, who was serving as a defensive analyst working with the defensive line, served as the defensive line coach for the Texas Bowl loss against Houston. So he had that on-field experience for the bowl practice leading up to that game against Houston. Well, Rasco has accepted a job as the assistant defensive line coach at Mississippi State. Hat tip to the Jackson Clarier Ledger. I believe they were the first that had it. That news actually broke about 5 days ago. Last week when I was in San Francisco at Super Bowl Radio Row. So forgive me for missing that one last week while I was on Super Bowl Radio Row, but I think a little bit understandable. So again, but hat tip to the Jackson Clarion Ledger for breaking that. Mississippi State does have Jermauria Rasco already listed on their website as the assistant defensive line coach. So I think with Rasco, you kind of look at it, and if there were an opportunity for him to stay, that would have made a lot of sense. But remember, Kyle Williams is out, Sterling Lucas coming in as defensive line coach, and it's his prerogative to bring somebody with him if he wants a GA or an analyst on the defensive line. But man, you look at that defensive line turnover, you go back to Jamar Cain. When Jamar Cain left in the middle of spring practice to go coach the Denver Broncos, you went to Gerald Chapman, who wasn't retained, Jimmy Lindsey, who unfortunately got ill and was replaced by John Jancic. Mid-season, they brought back Pete Jenkins, who then, after Jancic was moved out of that role, they hired Bo Davis. We thought that was going to be a long-term solution. After just 1 year, Bo Davis goes to the NFL. Then you bring in Kyle Williams. And then if you want to include Jermauria Rasco there as sort of the interim defensive line coach for the bowl game, and now Sterling Lucas, that's 9 defensive line coaches since Jamar Cain left at in the middle of spring for the Denver Broncos. So say very, spring of 23. I mean, you're talking about, you're coming up on, 4 calendar years, but, the 23, 24, and 25 seasons going into 26 are about 9 different defensive line coaches. That's just a stunning amount of turnover at that position. And hopefully Sterling Lucas does an amazing job and stays for the long haul here, coaching the LSU defensive line, and provides some stability, because that's just way too much. It's way too much turnover at that position. I don't know that I realistically expected Jermauria Rasco to get that job, but I can understand in this instance, he's going from being an analyst to being the assistant defensive line coach at an SEC school. That's a stepping stone job and a good leap forward for him. So congratulations to Jermauria Rasco for the opportunity. And congratulations to Greg Penn for joining this LSU football coaching staff. It is worth mentioning as well, there is a shuffle with the on-field staff. Blake Baker, who's been working with linebackers, is going to coach the star position, whereas Chris Kiffin is going to work with the linebackers. So a little bit of a shuffle. It'll be interesting to see, does Penn work under Baker or under Kiffin or both? But we'll see how all that transpires when the Tigers get on the field for spring here in just a few weeks. So a little bit of coaching staff turnover there. That's worth mentioning as we start today's episode of Locked On LSU. Meanwhile, basketball Tigers are going to hit the floor against Arkansas. Already feels like a lost season, but there's more injury news for both teams. We'll get into that as we continue here. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And quite honestly, if we're going to talk about moving the game forward for LSU in the basketball program right now, we probably have to talk about the LSU women who continue to roll. They bounced back after that tough loss against Texas to absolutely blow out Auburn on the road. 77-44 was the final. How about Zakiya Johnson with 16 points to lead LSU in that ball game? Michaela Williams added 12 as well, leading LSU to a big bounce back win and routing Auburn on the road 77-44. Hat tip to those ladies for an awesome job. And these remind us of what it takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it the extra fire, the grit, and I never quit. Mazda puts that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. We're also brought to you by Wayfair. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. See, Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh, all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work-from-home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for you, your style, and your budget. As a matter of fact, talking about work from home, told you before, chair I'm sitting in, Wayfair, the desk I'm working at, Wayfair, the rug behind me, Wayfair. We are a Wayfair family. My wife has it bookmarked. So get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. I want to dive back in the show here in just a quick second, but thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you haven't already, please go check out our new Everydayer Club. Gives you access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On LSU, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast apps, and an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. So please tap the link in the show notes to learn more. The LSU basketball team will be back at it on Tuesday. So a quick turnaround for the Tigers after a really tough loss on Saturday at home against Georgia, a game where LSU led by 15, only to then miss 16 consecutive threes. Almost unconscionable to think that that could happen. But now they have to play an Arkansas team who beat LSU just a couple of weeks ago up there in Fayetteville. Remember that game was another instance where the Tigers got off to a really hot start and then collapsed late, and ultimately Arkansas would wind up winning that game at Bud Walton Arena. Now the game shifts to Baton Rouge. It's an 8 o'clock Central Time tip, so a late tip for LSU and Arkansas. The Hogs ranked 21st in the country. They're 7-3. LSU 14-9 overall, just 2-8 in the conference. But it's only part of the story because Matt McMahon on his coach's show on Monday disclosed that DJ Thomas again will miss the Arkansas game. So listen, when he's been on the floor, DJ Thomas has been LSU's best player. He's averaging 15.3 points per game. Max McKinnon is just behind him at 15.1. Mike Nwoko at 13.7. Markel Sutton 13.2. Those are your only double-digit scores on average. So, when you talk about Thomas, he's played in 16 games this year for the LSU Tigers, but the problem has been in conference play, you've only had him for 3 games in limited action. He played 17 minutes in the loss to Florida. He did play 31 minutes in that 85-81 loss at Arkansas. In that game, he had 18 points for the Tigers. And then in the loss to Mississippi State, 4 days after that, he played 28 minutes with 14 points, 4 assists, and 2 rebounds. That was the one that really was the backbreaker for LSU. A really bad Mississippi State team in Baton Rouge that you had to have. But the bottom line is DJ Thomas is your best player, and you've only had him for 3 of your 10 conference games. He's missed 7 of your 10 conference games. And I'm not going to suggest that if DJ Thomas were healthy, that LSU would be a lock for the tournament or that they'd be any type of contender. But I think it's objectively true that if you take your best player off of any basketball team, it is going to negatively affect you. And when you lose both DJ Thomas and Jalen Reed for the second consecutive season, those are crushing blows that this team has just not been able to overcome, unfortunately. And, I think back to this offseason where, LSU had a decision to make coming into this year after last season, which was so disappointing, where just LSU and South Carolina were the only conference teams not to make the NCAA tournament. And LSU, the decision makers, could have moved on from Matt McMahon. Instead, they chose to, instead of spending that money to buy out McMahon and bring in a new coach, they said, let's take that money, invest in the roster, and see if we can give Matt McMahon a roster capable of winning in the SEC. Because I mean this with no disrespect. John Wooden could have come back from the grave and wouldn't have coached last year's LSU basketball team to the NCAA tournament. They just didn't have enough talent. So they went and invested in this roster, and they built a much better roster, and the results have been the same. Well, by and large, because the crown jewel of your portal class was DJ Thomas, and he's missed 7 of your 10 conference games. If DJ Thomas was there in the SEC opener against Texas A&M on the road, it's safe to say you probably win that game. If Thomas were available for the Kentucky game where you lost in that brutal, heartbreaking buzzer beater, you probably win that game. We could talk about blown leads in big games. You blew a big lead at Arkansas where Thomas did play, and then you blew a lead against Georgia where Thomas didn't play. So all that to say, I'm not excusing Matt McMahon for what's transpired, but it is to say without your best player, of course, that's going to negatively affect you, and it has really hurt LSU this year. Now, the flip side of it is Arkansas could very well be down a couple of key contributors as well. Both DJ Wagner and Carter Knox missed Saturday's game against Mississippi State, and John Calipari on the injury report listed both of them as doubtful on Monday night. So we'll see if they're able to go against LSU. Wagner missed time during his freshman season at Kentucky, of course, transferred to Arkansas following John Calipari, but missing the game this past weekend was the second game he's missed now in a season and a half at Arkansas. Knox is an 8-5 guy. Wagner averaging 7-2. Knox has been a starter. Wagner mostly been a guy that's come off the bench for Arkansas. When you look statistically at the two of them, Knox is a guy who is averaging he's playing 21 games, averaging 23 minutes per game. Wagner, 23.4 minutes per game. So two guys that have been key contributors, one as a starter, one giving you key minutes off the bench, and both are doubtful for the game against LSU. So maybe the Tigers in Baton Rouge catch a little bit of a break with Arkansas down a couple of key contributors for the game at the Maravich Center on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. I just don't know that I'm super optimistic LSU is going to be able to get this done. Arkansas is a 5.5-point favorite in Baton Rouge in that basketball game. It's going to take a Herculean effort for LSU to beat any good team, especially to try to do so without DJ Thomas on the floor. So here's hoping the Tigers can get it going, can find a way to turn it around. I'm just not sure that I'm optimistic that can happen for LSU at this point. Max McKinnon at 26 in LSU's loss to Georgia. Markel Sutton is a guy that's leading LSU in rebounds with over 7 a game. Razorbacks 7-3 in the league. And they're a team that's already beaten LSU once in a close game where they had to come back from a big deficit on their home floor. LSU's 2-8. I really don't know what else to say. They've just found ways to lose games there without their best player. Probably got to pick Arkansas to win that game. The other storyline in this game, though, that is somewhat interesting is what's going to happen before the game. And I want to touch on that as we wrap up the show next here on Locked on LSU. It's your team every day. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms, and they work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. That's TurboTax.com/local. When it comes to uniforms, I am a curmudgeon. Admittedly, unapologetically. If you're an everydayer, shout out, thank you. Or if you listen to my radio show or have followed my content at all over the last 20 years, you know this about me. I am unapologetically a uniform curmudgeon. I am a traditionalist. I absolutely loathe when teams wear uniforms that are not their colors. Everyone loves powder blue baseball uniforms, except me. Hey, Ole Miss, your colors aren't powder blue. Hey, St. Louis, well, actually, Ole Miss does have some powder blue. St. Louis Cardinals, you're not powder blue. All those 80s teams that wore powder blue, and I know what y'all are saying. Oh, they're so clean, they're great. No, they're not. You're just nostalgic. They're ugly. It's not your color. Don't wear it. When LSU decides they're going to wear a black baseball jersey, black's not your color. That was an awful decision by Smoke Laval. Mississippi State has black baseball uniforms. Terrible, stupid, don't ever do it. Black isn't your color. Wear your school colors. Okay. That's part of it. I love LSU's gold, white, gold football uniform, the traditional home football uniform. You have an iconic look. Don't mess it up. Stop doing the stupid all white. Stop doing the purple jerseys with the white pants and the white helmets. Stop doing the stupid gold jersey. Just stop it. You have an iconic look. Wear your iconic look. Now, if you're Oregon and you want to have 10,000 uniform combinations, I don't care. Oregon does not have an iconic look. They had to create a brand around them because they didn't have one. If you're Southern Cal, you have an iconic look. If you're Penn State, iconic look. Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame, Michigan, iconic look. Don't mess it up. If you have an iconic look, don't mess it up. So I've always felt New York Yankees, wear your pinstripes at home, wear your road grays. City edition stupidity in Major League Baseball, hate it. Same thing in the NBA with the city edition stuff. Hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. If you have an iconic look, wear your iconic look. And I understand why it happens. I'm not an idiot. It's all so that the apparel companies can sell merch. It's what it is, period. There's nothing else. If Nike rolls out an alternate uniform, they could put those jerseys in the gift shop and sell them or sell them online. It's what they do. I don't blame. Like, they're trying to make money. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but I understand what they're doing. Which is why what I'm about to tell you should floor you. LSU on social media on Monday announced the first 2,000 students at the PMAC on Tuesday for the game against Arkansas are going to get an LSU City Edition basketball jersey. Now, if you're watching, I'm going to put this on the screen. If you're listening, not watching, I'll try to describe it for you. There it is. Now, given that I've already told you, I'm a curmudgeon. I loathe alternate uniforms when you have an iconic look. What I'm about to tell you is going to stun you because I love this. How about that for the upset of the century? I love the LSU basketball City Edition uniforms. There's the back of it, by the way. So if you're listening, the City Edition jerseys are gold. On the front where it typically would say LSU, it says BTR, has the jersey number in the center, And then down around the waistline is a silhouette of the Baton Rouge skyline with the downtown buildings, including the state capitol, the Horace Wilkinson Bridge. Up near the shoulders, there's the Campanile, the clock tower on one shoulder, and the Tiger Head logo on the other shoulder. That's the front. On the back, across the nameplate, it says LSU, has the Coca-Cola logo above it, jersey number big on the back, and the silhouette again around the waist. In a vacuum, I could understand why you would think that's hideous. And you might not be wrong, but I kind of like it. And remember, LSU basketball does not have an iconic look. They've not been good. There's been pockets where you've had Bob Pettit and Pistol Pete and Shaq and big moments, but it's never been consistent. No one ever looks at LSU's basketball uniform and thinks Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, UCLA. Those are iconic looks in men's college basketball. LSU doesn't have that. So if you want to throw up a City Edition uniform, by all means. You know the one I really love? It's the old one from the early 1980s. It says like it's the script Louisiana State with the star dotting the I's. That's fire. Wear those more often. I'd say wear those in perpetuity. Like bring those back and make that your go-to. I think those are awesome. Somebody, if you're going to the game, get me a City Edition uniform. I kind of want one. Anybody listening, get your boy a City Edition jersey when LSU plays Arkansas on Tuesday. It'll be the highlight of the game. All right, that'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked On LSU. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.